Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Rachel from HiBob, and it's great to have all of you join us today. Let's go ahead and get started. So today we're excited to talk about 3 ways to modernize payroll processes for global businesses. And we're going to discuss the challenges that we face with payroll, working from home, working from abroad, everything that's been happening over the past 18 months, 2 years, and all the challenges businesses have faced. And how you can modernize your payroll to address it. Before we dive in, I want to take a moment to tell you a little bit about Bob. Bob is a modern, forward-thinking people management platform. It's a system of engagement designed to meet the unique needs of modern, mid-sized, and multinational businesses. Bob allows its users to automate and scale HR processes, develop people, and connect teams to help businesses and employees grow faster and stronger, no matter where they're located in the world. Our global team serves close to 1,400 customers across more than 100 countries and collectively over 260,000 employees around the world. We truly feel fortunate to help drive and support employee happiness and delivering exceptional employee experiences. As remote and hybrid work become a normal way of operation, HR is in a fortunate position to strategically lead their businesses to adapt and thrive. Through guiding and empowering managers to lead their teams, driving communication and engagement initiatives that build strong culture, and coming to the table with a strong analytical people insights, HR leaders can directly impact the success of the business they support and solidify their standing as a strategic driver of business performance. As I said, I'm Rachel. I'm a senior product marketing manager at HiBob, and I'm so excited to be joined today by 2 of our partners. Stan, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yes, hi Bob for the invitation. I'm absolutely delighted to be there. My role at ADP is to lead integration, transformation projects for our global payroll business. And this is why I'm here today.
Thanks, Stan. And Kelly, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kelly Combat, and I'm the Global Head of Talent and DE&I, that's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at IDEO.org. And what I do is I head all things with regards to talent, talent acquisition, employee happiness and their experience, as well as justice and equity for all. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you both for joining us. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So how did the response to COVID-19 impact your payroll and human capital management digitization plans? And what are the main challenges that you're still experiencing? Kelly, do you want to address this?
Absolutely. So a couple of years ago, I was working at the International Trademark Association as head of HR. Eventually, we changed that to employee experience. We were very fortunate to have predicted, needing a solution that was going to be more global. At INTA, we had a mindset of one team. And that one team mindset had to be about, if it's a global solution, it has to be a global solution. It can't be specific just to the US, even though, we were based in New York. We had offices in Singapore. We had offices in China and Chile. And we also had another location in Brussels, as well as in DC. And so we had signed up with HiBob. I want to say it was back in like a few months after I'd started with the organization. And thankfully, we were able to really, shift very quickly. And we already had Zoom. We already had digitization plans already loaded within HiBob. And our payroll solutions were very specific to each region. So we had social secretaries that we were in contact with. We had third-party vendors that had a lot more information and knowledge on those local labor laws, because I certainly didn't have any experience with payroll in China or in Singapore, although I had experience managing, locations at previous companies in other countries, in terms of, the Latin American zone and in Europe, but certainly didn't have any experience in that. And so the challenges were very few and far between. Usually those challenges happen to deal with being able to make sure that we were, super accurate and making sure that we had the coverage in the US to make sure to accommodate the time zone differences. So not really any concerns on our part because of the fact that we planned in advance.
Stan, anything you want to add to that?
Yes, I would be more talking about what we've seen among our client community as we are a vendor. And the first thing for me to say is that I have been impressed by the way HR and payroll people have coped with the pandemic. It has been amazing what they've done on top of their job to manage all the activities specific to the pandemic. It's true as well that the pandemic has been a true digital transformation booster. I feel companies have made more in the last 2 years than in many years before, which is more a kind of acceleration of many things which were planned, but which were maybe more needed in urgency to manage a couple of things related to the pandemic. And to me, I would say there were maybe 4 main things around this. So the first thing is that we still have a few processes which are paperwork-based, and it's really time to move away from any paperwork. It's time to do some cleanup and leverage great digital solutions to do that. Maybe the second point is really a huge focus on business continuity. And it's very true for payroll. You need to pay your people on time, especially when there is some anxiety and economic struggles with the pandemic. And one interesting fact that we got from our global payroll reports earlier this year is that before the pandemic, 50% of the companies believe they have a very good payroll accuracy. After the pandemic, this confidence scoring falls to 27%. So it's interesting to see that when you have a multitude of local payroll providers, it's harder for you to ensure your business continuity and to feel good about compliance. So that was also an interesting item. The third one for me is really how do you manage your workforce remotely? There is a lot of needs to better engage and keep and retain your people. It's very true from an HR perspective, but payroll is also important. Again, the pay slip is a key, and the pay date is a key event for every single associate during the month. So how does the payroll team provide visibility and confidence to their employees that they will be paid on time? And how do you also support them when they have questions? So there is a lot of levers that you can get from HR and payroll systems to support your function through that. And the last and fourth item is maybe a kind of acceleration of the war of talents, at least in some locations, where I think we'll be speaking about that, but where you need to bring some more flexibility in the way you manage payroll and benefits and locations and time schedules. So there is a lot of implications from a payroll perspective due to the fact that you want to compete on talents as well. We can't hear you, Rachel.
Thank you. No, just a note for our audience that feel free to go ahead and submit questions in the question box in the browser throughout the presentation. We'll save a few of them for the end, but we'll also be answering them on chat throughout, and we'll try to get to every question that comes up. So moving on. So what is the difference between a work from home and a work from anywhere policy? Kelly, have you dealt with this? Do you want to take this on?
Yes, absolutely. I certainly have. So, work from home and work from anywhere is a distinct difference. Work from home has been happening for some time. Companies have been very flexible in providing a hybrid kind of environment where employees can choose to work from home. But home was had a very specific definition. Home was a particular locale that you had already advised your company where you were living. The idea from work from anywhere is encompassing all of our office locations. Perhaps if you do not have a particular home base that you want to be specific to as to where you're working from, that place could be a second home, a summer home, your parents' house. It could be in another state, another region, another area of the world. And so my experience when I was working again back at International Trademark Association was that when I first joined the organization, my first 90 days, I was building rapport and I was looking at the policies. And again, going back to what I said earlier about a one team approach, a global approach to things, and looking at their work from home policy was very specific to what I said earlier about it being one locale. And it was very hierarchical. In terms of who had the access to this actual policy and how many times per month they could actually work from home. So depending on your level, you could work from home once a month or twice a month, when I looked at it, I found that it wasn't very democratized and that there could be some opportunity to have that one team global mindset. So got in contact with our stakeholders, tried to understand the pain points of what a work from anywhere policy would mean, with all the fluidity and all of the equalness and equity in terms of everybody being able to work anywhere in the world. Exactly how would it work? Because of it being so fluid and it being so ambiguous. We knew that there had to be some rules in place in terms of understanding where they were working because of local labor laws. If in fact you had this global mindset of being able to work from anywhere, there are tax laws and there are implications. So we knew that reporting was going to be key. Data was going to have to be in the details. And our policy started with saying that anybody, anywhere would be able to work from home and anywhere, basically 2 times a week. So we started small. We looked at all the data around the world. We knew that this is where the world was going. And we actually did a pilot for 2 months. It was the end of 2019. So between October 2019 and December 2019, we piloted it for 2 months. We wanted to see if people were going to be actually reporting where they were going and where they were working. And we ended up seeing that there was so much accuracy, as Stan said earlier. It's very important to have accuracy when it comes to your payroll. And because of our multiple locations around the world, we saw that, wow, if it worked for 2 months, this is probably very viable and feasible. We had no loss of productivity. In fact, productivity increased. Our engagement scores, we ran a survey during that time, that increased because people felt trusted. And again, we evened the playing field regardless of your level. And so that's what our approach to was for a work from anywhere policy. And so I'm really proud of that. We launched it in January of 2020, and then the pandemic occurred. So it couldn't have been more perfect timing. I just think that all the stars really aligned. But the work from anywhere policy, the difference mainly is that mindset of anywhere. It can be very concerning and daunting if you don't have the data and you don't do the reporting, because of the fact that it is a very global mindset. That's the difference.
Thank you. It's starting to feel like you knew something before the rest of us.
No, it was just timing.
Stan, anything you want to add?
Yes, maybe more specifically to what we could be seeing in terms of global payroll. It's true that the pandemic has opened the gates for a more flexible way of working, and some companies are making very big commitments to their employees. And if in your company, one of your competitors is doing that, And if your employees are asking for it as well, you probably consider deploying such policies. I fully agree with Kelly. I will maybe elaborate a bit on one item, because if you have to relocate some employees cross borders, there is a very strong reality behind those policies, which are really the local regulations. And so I would just suggest to not go too fast and seek for support to stay compliant. There is many questions around this. What type of employment contract you have to establish? Is there any immigration impact? Are there some minimum compensation or benefits requirements in a country? Maybe there is some tax impact, social security impact. Maybe as well for the company, if you start to have some permanent activity in a new country, you will have also some impact on your corporate taxes. Maybe in your industry, there is some specific limitations. If you work in finance, for example, maybe you can't execute some activities outside of the regulated territory. There is some questions around the safety of your employees, and not only of your employees, about the safety of the data that your employees process and manage as well. So there is many practical questions. I think it's quite exciting to be in a global world and to have those policies. But if you consider to relocate employees to their home country or to a country of their choice, my recommendation is really to look carefully about the regulations.
Great, thank you. So our next question. So what challenges or pain points are you seeing when it comes to managing your flexible work and global payroll policies? I can actually start to talk about this at HiBob. One of the nice things about working at HiBob is that we also use HiBob, and we're a multinational company. So we have sites from Australia, Israel, UK, and also in the US, and with more global expansion plans. Being a company in Israel, often in the tech industry, the Israeli companies very quickly expand globally, either to the US or to Europe, and start opening up offices there. So I've seen this in a number of companies that I've worked at. And it's a challenge. It's a challenge to keep up with all of the different payroll systems. It's a challenge to keep up with all of the payroll cycles, and then, as Dan mentioned, to just stay compliant with all those places. So I think that one of them is exactly as Dan and Kelly have mentioned, to be able to start slowly, because if you do too much too fast, or if you offer a work from anywhere policy that lets anyone go anywhere without any kind of compliance check, you're going to end up doing a lot of extra work. And so that comes back to being very clear about what the policy is and how does it work. And that will really stop the challenge of creating extra work for your finance team, for your payroll team, and keep everybody on the same page. Stan, do you have anything that you want to add to that?
Yes, I think that the requirements for companies such as ADP is for the client to have a legal entity and employees with an employment contract. And then it starts to be a good use case for multi-country payroll. And this is where ADP is also serving and supporting clients across the world. Because once you have a global payroll provider, then they can deliver managed services and they can take care of compliance from a payroll perspective. And if you have to open new subsidiaries, new branches across the globe, the incremental effort is quite limited. So it's very convenient. We'll speak later about the system implications, but as it's all on one system, one operational framework, it's quite convenient. And then, what do you have to think about? Maybe for sure you can start also to centralize and standardize some stuff like some global compensation policies. Some of the growth components could be standardized, maybe more specifically from what we see, the variable elements, the rewards elements. You can start to build as well some centralized shared service centers. Usually our clients do that by region, which is quite the time zone. Of course, we'll speak about that, but the unified data collection process is a key factor of success to deploy such global payroll policies, which have to be integrated between payroll and the HCM system like IBOB. And all the very practical elements like, having payroll calendars harmonized, having payroll processes harmonized is also supporting the case for global payroll policies deployment.
Great. So our next question, how do you measure your ROI with payroll? Stan, I'm sure that that you've done this a few times.
Yes, exactly. And well, it's very hard to get investment for payroll if you don't come with a good business case to your executives. And there is no single truth. It all depends about the context of your company. Small or growing company, is it already a global company willing to remodel its footprint? What industry, what geographies, all those factors will change the approach, of course. I'd like also to start by saying it's not only about cost savings. Payroll investment could be helping as well to have a better reputation, to avoid risks, to drive a better employee experience, to build better support for international expansion, as I said previously. So having said that, to me, there is two types of costs, the visible cost and the hidden cost. And from a recent surveys that we've done at ADP, we consider that it's approximately around 40% of visible cost and 60% of hidden cost. So the hidden cost portion is big. In the visible cost, you can target to reduce your IT cost, your payroll labor cost. So it's all about optimization of the systems and processes. And from a hidden cost perspective, you have many hidden costs like the cost of upgrading your systems, the cost of integrating your system, the fines or the penalties you can get if you are not compliant, the tax filing issues you can meet, how do you disburse the money? All those things could be costly, maybe more indirect or maybe coming from poor quality, but will be part of the business case that you can come with in terms of payroll investment. We also believe at ADP that payroll outsourcing is a good lever. We generally deliver 20% of cost saving when we outsource payroll for a global company. But again, I think that in this post-pandemic world, it's not just about cost savings. It's also around business continuity and employee experience that payroll will deliver the best value.
Great, thank you. Kelly, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, Stan hit on a lot of really good, poignant points, all very salient. And I think that it's everything to be able to provide the business case. He's also right about the fact that there are intrinsic rewards as well that need to be considered, and they are quite large. What we think about all the time is the employee experience from the time that they start with the organization to the time that they decide to leave, whether they're retiring or moving on to another organization, that they can look back fondly on that journey, if you will. And some of those things that we consider also are just the fact that the time and the efficiency of self-service and being able to have the ability to not have, a lot of times your payroll groups, at least in the organizations I've worked in, are quite small, and they are tasked with so many things. And we want to think about their labor costs, the time that they're spending on investigating certain things and and providing a lot of answers where employees really could find those answers themselves in an efficient way. It doesn't really make sense to make the investment if that investment is not efficient for the employee experience. So we measure ROI in all the things that Stan mentioned. Certainly, we also think about other implications of mistakes and long-term goals that we have with efficiencies and the self-service experience.
Amazing. I think that leads us right into our next question. What are the benefits of choosing an integrated HR and multi-country payroll system? And so when we say integrated, it doesn't have to mean the same payroll system, but you do need at least two systems that can integrate with each other and talk to each other. So at HiBob, we are launching our new payroll hub at the beginning of November that we're very excited about. And we've done it in partnership with ADP. And we, along with other integration partners, and we're really excited because this is going to give that self-service opportunity where employees can update, where you've got all your flows in place and you've got all of your automatic updates in place and validations in place for whenever all that employee data is changing. So that's happening in Bob. People are engaged and they're more likely to keep their data accurate as a result. But then also it's taking the load off of the payroll team to, constantly chase for updated data or to check all of the data, all the employee changes, and make sure, you've checked everything rather than just checking the delta of what you've changed. So Payroll Hub is also going to bring up that data, and then it's going to transform the data into exactly the way your payroll system needs. So that's just kind of a sneak peek. But I would love to hear from either of you if you've had experience with this kind of balance.
I would love to jump in and talk about that. So as I previously mentioned, at INTA, at the International Trademark Association, we believed in HiBob so much. We knew that it was going to be a great solution for us on so many fronts. And we launched in February 1, 2020. And when we launched, even though there was no integration at that point, that's why I'm smiling, I'm beaming about this news. I think it's amazing. That was the one thing we wished for, because we had all these other multi-countries and payroll systems, and we were running it once a month, and we had all these connectivities to third-party vendors so that they could be able to provide us the expertise. We didn't have that one-stop shop for the employees that fed to all the pulls and the levers and all of that. And that's what we had wished for. We eventually knew that it was coming. So I'm really super happy about this news. I think that is exactly what makes everything like a one-stop shop. And that solution will be able to drive so many processes in a lot more of an efficient way than what we experienced in February of 2020. It seems like 1,000 years ago, but this is really good news. Lots and lots of benefits indeed.
Thanks. Glad you're so excited about it. We're really excited to roll it out and to share it with the world. Stan, anything you want to add?
No, I just fully agree. I think the ability to integrate our payroll, our global payroll system with an HR solution is probably the number one driver for buyers to choose a global payroll, and in our case, ADP. It's super important, and for sure, it's obvious that a global HCM system like HiBob and a global payroll solution like ADP working well together because you have just one integration point. You don't need to integrate your HCM solution with a myriad, with tens or dozens of local payroll systems, which could be legacy in local languages. So it's quite complicated. So global HR and global payroll are working very well together. And not only from a technical perspective, but also from an operational perspective, especially if you have combined teams on the client side to take care about the HR, IS, and payroll systems together. And if you are also a growth company with an aggressive roadmap to open new countries, once this global framework is built, again, I said it already, but it's quite convenient to add more countries, more territories. The investment will be limited, and you will be able to get some synergies from many regards when you have this global infrastructure in place. So this is key. We see a great IBOB adoption in the marketplace, and it's also why we are super happy to be a partner and to reinforce the way we connect our systems. IBOB is already available on ADP Marketplace in the US, and we have great discussions to expand it internationally. So we are absolutely excited to reinforce the way we can integrate our solutions for the best of our users.
Definitely. Thank you. And I think it's, it's funny when you listen to our conversations with prospects and to customers, and they say, well, why aren't you guys building a payroll, a full built out payroll solution? And we say two things. One is there are so many companies out there that do it well already. When you hear ADP, you think of payroll. Why, that took decades to build. Why would we go up against that? It doesn't make sense in terms of resources and in terms of, product strategy. But then also, we really do want to serve the global companies. And so we really value the ability to connect with ADP globally and to build out that roadmap together and to be able to connect with other payroll systems and support those global companies no matter where you have employees and no matter what kind of work from anywhere policy you have. So our next question, what kind of payroll metrics do you track and how do you benchmark and track them? Sam, I think you had some good points here.
Yeah, I love data, and I think it's key to think about the use we make of data when we set up a system. It's not just to automate or make easier a process, but what value do you expect to get from the data? And so there is I will be maybe more coming with questions than answers, but I feel that sometimes we have too many indicators, too many KPIs, too many reports. So maybe one of the first questions is, what are really the key KPIs and the key drivers that we need to drive or that we need to get from the systems? How do we combine our HR and payroll indicators with finance, which is already often a provider of KPIs? That's also a second question. Do we have the data? And if we have the data, how easy is it to consolidate them? Are we sure that they have good quality? It's not because you have the data or the feeds available in your system that the report will be top quality, because you also need to make sure you capture them properly, in the right way, in the right timing. And so in many cases, the questions for the client is also more maybe how do we optimize the usage of the system rather than trying to add a new layer on top of what already exists. So that's maybe a few questions that I would suggest to explore.
Great. Yeah, we know that these things aren't a one-size-fits-all. So a lot of times it's about asking the right questions rather than giving the right answers. Kelly, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I think Stan covered it all. Thank you.
Thank you. So for the last piece, we did promise 3 ways that your team can modernize the payroll processes. And we came up, for a few suggestions, all of which we've talked about, throughout this presentation. But if we want to kind of consolidate it down to those 3 main points, this is what we're looking at. So first is to automate the collection and updating and transfer of all the HR data to your payroll system. So that's what we're talking about with the self-service, making sure that you have automations in place to keep it up to date, making sure that the transfer is as automated as possible, and really streamlining that, reducing the double work or moving things from this system to that, or having to, control F on a spreadsheet and to change everything. And that's going to reduce errors, save time, and, let your payroll staff, as Kelly mentioned before, get more things done since they have so much that they have to do. The next one is to implement a global work from home and or work from anywhere policy with clear guidelines for employee reporting and compliance. And so, again, this is about being very clear in what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, understanding the regulations of where your home office is based, about where your other offices are based, Maybe it can be part of your business strategy. You do know that eventually you want to go into Europe, and so you will allow a work from anywhere from Europe because you want to go ahead and establish that entity and give people a chance to go there because they want to, not because your company's necessarily ready to actually open an office and plant the flag there. And just making sure that, you understand that for where your employees are being sent their current payroll, that they understand residency issues, and that if they're if they're an employee on your payroll, that they do maintain that residency, so you continue to be compliant. I think that's a big one that hasn't come up yet. That probably a lot of Gen Z or our millennials traveling around the world don't always necessarily think about. And then the last one is working with the multinational payroll provider. So working with a payroll provider that does have that reach, even if it's not themselves, but they have partnerships and they're able to accommodate you wherever you are. And, in some cases that's ADP, in some cases that's making sure you have an HR system that can connect with all those systems. There are solutions out there. Kelly, anything that you want to add to that?
No, I think these are three great ways, and I love what you were saying about the clear guidelines in terms of the employee reporting, because, yes, we are definitely a global society now. There's so many reporting requirements. I mean, I know a lot of folks of all generations were picking up and they were going to different locales for good reason, for more space or what have you to work. But even here in the U.S., if you are based in New Jersey and you're going into New York and working so many days in New York, I mean, even locally here, just in the U.S., from state to state, we've got local guidelines and policies and regulations. So all very important points. And thanks for covering it.
Stan, anything you want to add?
Oh, it's true that globalization is a deep trend, which has started a long time ago and which has probably accelerated with the pandemic. And any HR function has to have a strategy for business expansion, international expansion. And those three ways, to me, is not only to modernize payroll processes, but also to get prepared for business expansion for your company.
Great, thanks. So with that, let's see if we have any questions from our audience. This one came up a lot. How do you start building a work from anywhere policy? Kelly, do you want to go ahead and tackle that?
I sure can. I think it's really important to understand where you want to go. Stan just said it very succinctly about it's not just about the employee experience. It's about really forward thinking and getting prepared. And how do you get prepared? It's really about understanding start from the beginning. Who are the stakeholders that need to be involved? Who can you partner with within your organization? How can you get employee feedback to know what's the right kind of policy where you can start? Get your data, start always with data, and provide the best business case as to the why, what's in it for the employees, what's in it for the organization, what are the risks, spell all those things out before you get going with actually creating the policy. Because if you provide the time and the energy and effort from the beginning in terms of the data, then you're going to have a much better argument once you start, crafting what that policy is going to look like.
Amazing. So our next question is, how do you keep up with multiple payroll systems? Stan, do you want to take that one?
Yes, I think there is a fact which is interesting, which is that 75% of the multinationals still have are still using local payroll providers, but every year a very significant number are switching to global payroll providers. So I think there is a trend, of course, as we said, to move from local payroll or domestic payroll solutions to global payroll solutions. But again, there is not a single truth, and I think it's all about what is the footprint of your company what is the headcount per country. What I see generally is that you have very large headcount in the headquarter location. Then maybe you have some more significant headcount in maybe 3-5 countries. And then as you expand, you have very limited headcount in a very big number of countries. So maybe the solution for the headquarter, maybe the solution for the big entities and for the long tail are not the same. So what we try to do at ADP is really to come with a flexible solution to better match with your needs in every single country. And maybe the HQ solution will not be the same that for the long tail, you know. But I think overall the trend is definitively to centralize, standardize, and therefore select more global payroll solutions as you grow and as you scale.
Definitely. Kelly, anything that you want to add? It sounds like your work has dealt with multiple countries.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by those numbers that Stan just talked about in terms of how many multinationals are evolving and coming up with a more global solution. I think that it's really important to think about your capacity and be realistic. Be realistic, as I said earlier, about what is the capacity of the payroll team that you have, and what are the possibilities when you think about payroll systems. I think that there was not a heavy lift when we were thinking about HiBob and we integrated HiBob. There wasn't a heavy lift. But when I think about the efficiencies between the multiple payroll systems and the fact that we didn't have anything that was integrated, it created a lot more work for our payroll person at the time. And so what we learned from that was, in terms of stakeholders that could have been more involved, I think that we could have partnered a lot more with those folks in the other countries in terms of the difference between all the different systems. And I would say that, just think about the future, be prepared, speak to the, what's the 5-year plan? What's the vision of the 10-year plan? And constantly, create time to ideate, create time to do some blue sky thinking and to do an environmental scan to the future of your business. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about being prepared for now and all the changes. I mean, this pandemic is not over. So, think about what's happening in the next 5 years and start thinking about the competition and how you can get ahead of that.
Definitely. Those are great points. I think it's obvious to me that you're into, people management and employee engagement, because what you just said kind of transcends payroll and applies to, the entire C-level and all leadership across all companies. And it actually goes straight into our next and final question, which is what stakeholders should you include in this process? So you mentioned people in other countries. Anyone else that you should bring in?
Yeah, so for multiple payroll solutions and systems, as well as work from anywhere policies and programs, I think that the stakeholders, when I was thinking about doing that democratization and coming up with this one team philosophy and changing the policy from work from home and a very finite level of times that people could work at home to transitioning to work from anywhere, the stakeholders that I thought were important, obviously my manager, who was the CEO, was important to be a stakeholder. Finance, always, side by side, me and finance, as well as when I think about other kinds of setups and organization structures, diversity, equity, and inclusion is a great partner to have as a stakeholder, because that person or that group, that team may have an equity lens, a justice lens that will, prevent you from some adverse impact and adverse treatment of employees. Because as we, some of the things that I'm hearing out there in the universe about rolling out some of these policies and thinking about different kinds of payroll policies when it comes to people moving or people working from other areas and changing their pay structure and all these things that are choices that they're making. Where I find that there's the most risk is not thinking about the implications to turnover, to, with every decision, there's a reaction to that decision. And it could be a very adverse impact to your company, to your organization, if you don't involve the right people. So equity, benefits, if benefits and payroll are not combined, finance has to be the partner, and members of senior management, whether it's the COO, the CEO, all those individuals need to be involved.
Perfect. Stan, anything you want to add to that?
No, I think it's a very good wrap-up and conclusion.
Perfect. Me too. Well, thank you both for joining us. This was an enlightening conversation, and thanks to our audience for joining as well. And hope everyone has a great morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world.